what shook you the most plot-wise when you were like, whoa, this is intense?
Probably Hannah being dead the whole time. That blew me away when we were talking about it in the writer's room. I was like, what? She was dead the whole time?
It's such an intense show. There's so many layers to it. The character is dealing with a trauma around her, an internal trauma, all these things that are going on. What was it about this character in particular that made it more difficult for you to do that than in other times?
I think a lot of it was the physically rigorous aspect of it, the amount of information I was holding at my head at any given moment, because we were shooting I hadn't ever done anything quite this rigorous. I hadn't worked quite as long hours continuously over time. There was that, and just the time in my life. I'm 25. I'm now moving from having worked pretty consistently for about 3 years. But I haven't had much time to, process whatever that means. Adjust to that change. And I feel like that had a lot to do with it. I don't also Danny just being so, she's big. She's also very anxious. So when I'm doing all of those anxiety attacks, I'm not having an anxiety attack, I assure you, but I'm shaking and I'm crying, and that's like exhausting in a very specific way. You know how you feel after you have a big cry, but I'm doing that over and over and over and over again.
Does it become...
It's worth it. It is worth it. I get to watch it and be like, yeah, okay, it's worth it. But at the time, I think I had a little time, a harder time understanding that.
We place so many labels on people still. We're like, you're like this, so cool, so that's your label, and you stick to that label. And I think labels are so damaging in so many ways to people and their identity and themselves. How's that played out in your own life, this idea of labeling and whatever aspect that could be?
For instance, I have ADD, and that label did not suit me, I felt. I was 6 years old or 7 years old and being told you are going to be at a higher rate of, you might not ever be able to read and write well. You're going to have a higher rate of incarceration, higher rate of drug use, higher rate of lots of medical problems. It's going to be very hard for you to live a healthy lifestyle, all of these things. And I just looked at that label and I was like, no. Yeah. That's not me.
That label's going in the bin.
I have ADD. Severe ADD. Whatever that means, and it affects the way I live, the way I think, the way I process information or don't process information. And it was so damaging to me at that age because it didn't do anything for how I defined myself. It only allowed other people to make assumptions and feel like they had the answers to something far more complex than ADD. People with ADD are very different. There are so many. I remember going to an ADD support group and being like, I don't like these people, and why should I? But that's that kind of label. Then there's label that suggests more community and stuff like that. And I don't know, but the ADD thing, I can say that those kind of mental diagnoses, I feel like they often do so much more for the people treating you than it does to the actual individual having an understanding and feeling empowered within their identity. If I had listened to people, I wouldn't be where I am. If I had thought of it as a deficit, I wouldn't be here, And I feel so strongly that I kind of want to be a voice within that community.
What's so amazing about what you're saying as well, and I think this is so remarkable about you as a person, is you've taken this thing and you've just used it to empower you. And you're like, I am empowering myself. I'm going to do this for me. And now you're out there slaying it on Netflix. Honestly, I feel like you should be so proud of that you've taken that thing and that label and used it to empower you in so many ways as well.
I don't feel like I found it empowering until I've gotten to this point, you know, until I've like exited academia and found my way into having a career and making a life for myself. I think I kind of always questioned that it would be the thing that just me up, you know, because people weren't particularly accommodating or understanding about it. People tried to tell me about my own brain and my own mind my entire life. And I think that that's really destructive. But then it's just like, now I can see it. And I feel like I need to talk about it because I need other young people that are struggling in school or struggling with their emotions and their feelings to know that it's normal, that they're not deficient or defective. I wish the educational system in this country catered to like more people, and that I had more teachers that had the tools to understand and help me. And it's so great being an actor because I don't play labels, I play people. And that's the goal. You can either uphold all these assumptions and labels and stereotypes, or you can do things that divert them. And that's a show, and my show, you know, I think does a pretty good job of bending those things and making us question and even just seeing things differently, I hope.
I think that's so true. That is so powerful what you just said in that sense. And that leads me on so well to This Is Not a Love Letter. It's so important that someone like you is lending your voice and your message to this kind of message. What really spoke to you about this project in particular, and what made you want to be part of it?
I mean, I agreed to be a part of it before I understood what it was. I agreed to be a part of it because my close friend told me that she'd written something and that she wanted me to be there, and that a bunch of other women were going to be there. Some people I knew, some people I didn't know. And then I went into the room and she read the poem to me for the first time. And I had been in school with this woman for 4 years. And I didn't know this story. It's really powerful, isn't it? It's really not only her sharing her experience, but the way that she articulates herself, the way she tells this story. I agreed to do it because it was Isabel, because she's one of the best people I know. And then afterwards, I found out that I was very, very, very lucky to be asked to be a part of something extremely powerful and informative. I feel so strongly that this conversation around abortion is being held by a bunch of people who don't know about what it is to have that experience, and she's an authority on that. And so she needs to be listened to. The only way people like, I know I'm trying to talk politics. The only way people, you know, justify life at conception is through some Christian standard. It completely gets in the way of the separation between church and state. And yet you still see in this story that the morality taught through Christianity still made this woman question whether or not, you know, God loved her, you know? We have our own morality. The government shouldn't be defining that for us.
Well, I think I've said, I think you're amazing about 20 million times during this.
You're also amazing. This has been great.
Thank you so much for taking the time out to speak to me.